time with Mr. Lamada. He will be starting soon. Oh, story time with Mr. Lamada, where all your dreams come true. Oh, he brings to life your favorite stories with a great big smile. You won't leave lonely. Won't you start all the reading? I just can't wait to be hearing story time with Mr. Lamada. He will be starting soon. Oh, story time with Mr. Lamada, where all your dreams come true. Oh, he brings to life your favorite stories with a great big smile. You won't leave lonely. Won't you start all the reading? I just can't wait to be hearing.
Good morning, and welcome to Story Time. Thank you for joining me. Happy Thursday, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Story Time, and I am glad you're here with me. Another great book, another great story awaits, and we're here today reading On Wings of Words, The Extraordinary Life of Emily Dickinson. And this one is written by Jennifer BERNE and illustrations by BECCA STADTLANDER. Good morning to you and welcome. And of course, we are reading this one with permission of Chronicle Books of San Francisco. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you're ready for this one. A beautiful book, a wonderful book. As you know, Emily Dickinson will just take your breath away. Thank you so much for joining in. I'm glad you're here. Please get comfortable, get cozy, because we have a great story that we'll be reading together. How are you doing today? What is the weather like in your area? And as always, please remind me where you're joining us from and who is joining in with you. I will be looking at those comments later on and definitely sharing the next day. Thank you so much for being here. As you know, we've moved into this new format, so I'm not here right now, but I'm here. And then we'll be back, of course, with more live readings in the evenings this time. I will be communicating that, still working out a few logistics in the back, but story time continues, and we have double story time coming up very soon. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am glad you're here, continuing to share wonderful books together. And please remember, if you have books that you love, books that you really want to see here on Story Time, send me that communication. Kids, tell their adults at home, let them send me that information, and we will try and get them right here on Story Time. As you may have heard, there have been extensions on permissions on books that we can read, so that is exciting. I'm so happy. Thank you so much, and I am glad that we'll continue to share more stories. And of course, please, we know too that the pandemic is still raging. Please be careful out there. This thing is real. Let us continue to follow health guidelines and protect our loved ones and our communities. Thank you so much for being here. Absolutely appreciate you. Our book today, On Wings of Words, and this is The Extraordinary Life of Emily Dickinson. Are you ready? I know a lot of people will appreciate this one. It is indeed a beautiful book, beautifully written by Jennifer BERNE, and of course with bits of drops in there of Emily Dickinson's words. So it is a powerful book, and here we are getting started with it. I hope you're well wherever you are. I miss being here live with you all the time, but I'm still glad that technology allows us to be here together right now at this time, enjoying stories and enjoying learning from each other. All right, here we go. On Wings of Words, The Extraordinary Life of Emily Dickinson, written by Jennifer BERNE, illustrated by BECCA STADTLANDER, published and read with permission of Chronicle Books of San Francisco. Here we go. On Wings of Words, The Extraordinary Life of Emily Dickinson. Written by Jennifer BERNE, illustrated by BECCA STADTLANDER, published by Chronicle Books of San Francisco. Soft moonlit snow draped the Dickinson house in white. It reaches to the fence. It wraps it, rail by rail, till it is lost in the fleeces. It flings a crystal veil. Oh, such a way with words. I love it. In a little room in the dark before dawn, a baby girl is born. Her parents celebrated the holiday they called Emily. Oh. Emily met the world and began to explore. To little Emily, every bird, every flower, every bee or breeze or slant of light seemed to speak to her. She explored with her eyes, her ears, her thoughts, and found the words for everything she was discovering. Aww. The bee is not afraid of me. I know the butterfly. The brooks laugh louder when I come. Aww. Remember the brooks? A brook from yesterday's book? A small stream? Yeah. When thunder crashed and lightning flashed, Emily got scared and called it the fire. Emily adored her older brother, Austin. She said there was always such a hurrah wherever he was. She loved her school friends, who she said were a warmth as near as if the sun were shining in your hand. Oh. Every day, Emily's life rippled with new joys and swayed with new feelings. It was clear Emily was becoming a person in many ways like other people, only more so. Her happies were happier, her sads were sadder. Her thoughts were deeper, her desires were stronger, and oh, there was so much that Emily loved. My heart grows light so fast that I could mount a grasshopper and gallop around the world and not fatigue him anyway. Most of all, Emily loved her books. The strongest friends of the soul, books. To Emily, every book was an adventure, a distant journey on a sea of words. And if a book was forbidden, well, that didn't stop Emily. Like the book she wanted that Austin smuggled into the house and hid inside the piano, Emily rushed it up to her room and read it in delicious secrecy. Every story she read at night by candlelight or in the garden's midday sun was a new passion, a ray of light. Yes, indeed, books should be out there for each one of us, an adventure, a distant journey on a sea of words. And if a book was forbidden, well, we will find it and read it. Oh. But there were shadows too. In the 1800s, sorrow was a daily companion. The sorrow of disease incurable, accidents untreatable, and deaths too soon, too close. All this frightened Emily and flooded her mind with questions. Right. Emily tried to find answers at home. She looked for answers at church. And she searched for answers at school. But everywhere she looked, she was told to obey without asking, to believe without knowing why. So she began to put her faith in what she could see and understand. In the name of the bee and of the butterfly and of the breeze. Amen. When her very religious school principal separated the class into hopers and no hopers, Emily was put in the group without hope. Yet Emily did have hope, her own kind. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. So with her hope, she sought her truth. I am out with lanterns looking for myself, as we all should be. Then, like rays of sun breaking through the clouds, her thoughts and feelings started to come to her as words, new words, her own words. The robins, bumblebees, and daisies she loved, the dark diseases and frightening deaths, the unknowable God and mysterious heaven all came pouring out as poems. Things are building and springing and singing. Answers she couldn't find in other people, she started to find in herself. I have been dreaming a golden dream, with eyes all the while wide open. I have been dreaming a golden dream, with eyes all the while wide open. Her poems soothed her sadness, gave her strength, set her free. With the power of her words and the freedom of her imagination, she tasted spices in foreign lands and hid inside a flower. She leaned against the sun, dwelt in a house of possibilities, and rode a carriage to the ends of time. Oh. She became a bird, a worm, a ghost, a god, a beggar, a king, a somebody, a nobody. I am nobody. Who are you? Are you nobody too? Then there's a pair of us. Don't tell. They would banish us, you know. How dreary to be somebody. How dreary to be somebody. How public like a frog to tell your name the livelong June to an admiring bog. She called her poems my letter to the world that never wrote to me. And so, with her words, her mind, Emily dove into the darkest depths of the sea and of sadness. She rose up to the glowing heights of the sun and of joy. Emily saw the inner world was bigger than all the world outside. The brain is wider than the sky. For put them side by side, the one the other will contain with ease, and you beside. Emily spent more time in her room, writing, creating. She ventured out less and less. Exhilaration is within, she would say. As Emily's inner world grew bigger, her outer world grew smaller. Yes, there were things she still loved in the worldly world. She loved her gardens, the bees, the springtime, and the wind combing its fingers through the trees. And of course, her family, a few very special friends, a big dog, Carlo, and children. Emily loved children. But most people she saw rarely or not at all. Emily began to dress in white, white like clouds, like the foam on a wave, white like a cocoon in the room from which butterflies were born, butterflies that were poems that flew with Emily on wings of words. People in the town said Emily was weird. Emily was strange, but Emily didn't care what they said about her, what they said of her. Her world was somewhere else. My country is truth. Oh. Emily never stopped writing, never stopped exploring. With every day and every poem, she saw more, discovered more, traveled deeper, soared higher for the rest of her life. On a Saturday in May 1886, Emily died, slipping into eternity she had wondered about, into an eternity she had wondered about and written about all her life. Then something wonderful and amazing happened. What was it? Emily's sister, Vinnie, opened drawers, trunks, boxes, and closets and found hundreds and hundreds of Emily's poems, more than anyone ever imagined. Poems that, on the wings of Emily's words, flew out and away into the future and around the world. Today, almost every library, every bookstore, every school in every city, state, and country has Emily's poems, Emily's words, Emily's letters to each of us. The world is sleeping. We must be crowing cocks and singing larks and a rising sun to wake her. And in those words, can you hear Emily's voice echoing through the years, speaking to you, to all of us who are brave enough to take a pen in hand, to look deep and write what we discover? I dwell in possibility, a fairer house than prose, more numerous of windows, superior for doors, of visitors the fairest, for occupation this, the spreading wide my narrow hands to gather paradise. The end. And there's a little bit more that the author puts back there on Emily. And it says about Emily's poetry. Many of Emily's poems are like puzzles or little mysteries, full of hints and riddles, visions, secrets, and truths, waiting to be discovered and experienced. Each one is inviting you to enter it and go on a thought journey with Emily. No one fully understands or gets everything out of Emily's poems on the first reading. Often, if you reread a poem of Emily's a month later, a year later, many years later, you will see and find whole new things, new messages and new ideas, new currents that never seemed to be there before. As you evolve, so do Emily's poems. That's how full and rich they are. And that's why so many people fall in love with Emily's poems for their entire lives. I am one of those people. Perhaps you will be too. Thank you so much for joining in Storytime today. A great, great personality right there, Emily Dickinson. And of course, this wonderful book that brings to life such a story in such a vivid way by Jennifer BERNE and illustrations by BECCA STADTLANDER. Thank you so much for joining in. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a thing or two from that one. And I hope that too, when you go to the library next time, you will want to discover and find more of Emily Dickinson's books. Such an inspiration. And I love too that she was looking for herself. She knew that she knew what she was and who she was, and she stayed true to that. So many times we try to please everybody, please people, but you have to be true to yourself, and that will make you happier. So many appreciations for this wonderful book and this wonderful personality and learning more about her. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed it. Please do share what you like about this book or what your favorite Emily Dickinson books or poems are. Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been Storytime on this lovely Thursday. Sunny out here. I hope it is nice and sunny where you are and you're enjoying it. Or if you like a cloudy day, I hope it is just that for you. Thank you so much for joining in Storytime. Please remember that Storytime will be back again tomorrow with another exciting story that we're bringing back. And this one is Luca's Special Blanket, a gift of love from Grandma. Yes, we've read this one before, but we're bringing it back as this week we bring back all the lovely books that we've been sharing so far on Storytime, a few of them at least. Written by Dennis and illustrated by Stella Hong. Do join me tomorrow for this one at the same time, 11 a.m. Pacific time. But today we had a lovely book to enjoy, and this is the poetry of Ms. Emily Dickinson, and this is On the Wings of Words, The Extraordinary Life of Emily Dickinson, written by Jennifer BERNE and illustrated by BECCA STADTLANDER, and of course read with permission and published by CHRONICLE Books of San Francisco. Thank you so much for joining in. Please find it at your local library. Find it where you get books. Find it, ask for it from your teacher, from wherever you are, from the dots in your house, so you can get to read these books and explore. And you know what, kids? Write. I encourage you to write. Enjoy, write as much as you can, practice and learn and keep exploring, keep being yourself. You are beautiful and we need you just the way you are. Thank you so much for being here on Storytime. This has been Storytime for today. I will be back tomorrow, as I said, with Luca's special blanket. So please do join me for that one. Much love from me. Have a lovely day where you are. Enjoy it. If it is afternoon, have a great afternoon. If it is morning, enjoy your morning. And if you're getting ready to get back to school, I hope those preparations are going well for you. As always, much love from me. Hugs and kisses. I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Story time. Story time with Mr. Lamada. He will be starting soon. Story time with Mr. Lamada, where all your dreams come true. Oh, he brings to life your favorite stories with a great big smile. You won't live lonely, won't you start all the reading? We just can't wait to be hearing. Brings to life your favorite stories with a great big smile. You won't live lonely, won't you start all the reading? We just can't wait to be hearing.